in an elementary school than a 5th grade sitting in a middle school, because they have different philosophies of how they work with kids. Okay? So I would, I don't know how I got off on that, but that's just something that I really hope we do as we move forward with. I asked for us to delay a decision on the 2 schools until Buford Middle School had the same opportunity to come up with a plan. If you remember from the August 5th meeting, Mrs. Smith from Robert Smalls made a very good presentation with graphs about, okay, this is where, or diagrams with, this is where we're going to put the 5th graders, this is how we're going to separate them, this is the entrance they're going to come in. And because that's been on the table for, what is it now, 8-9 months, there's been lots of opportunity for the community to talk about that. Buford Middle School hasn't had that same opportunity. Now they're going to next week. I understand there's some parent meetings, both for the Robert Smalls parents and the Buford Middle School parents on Tuesday and Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday? Okay. Anyhow, so I'll be interested in going and listening to those, because I try not to look at it from a convenience sake. I try to look at it for what's consistent and what's appropriate. If we're going to do it this way here, then why aren't we doing it the same way over here? I wish we could do it district-wide, to be honest with you, and have some consistent grade configurations district-wide. But at least in this half of the district, where it's likely that people might move around, I mean, could you imagine a student? I mean, I could imagine the impact it might have on a student if I was sitting at Ladies Island Middle School in 5th grade, and that's where I went to school, and my parents moved to Mossy Oaks, and all of a sudden I find myself back in an elementary school.
Exactly.
I think kids look at that and go, no, I got out, I finished elementary school, I don't want to go back to elementary school, I like being up here with the big kids kind of thing, and having some of the other advantages of being in a middle school setting. I know that's a small thing to some people, but I think it's, I try and look at where we can be consistent wherever we can, instead of constantly coming up with exceptions, which we seem to have an awful lot of, it seems to me. That, we say this is how we're going to do something, then we go, but we'll have an exception over here.
With the moving of the 5th grade from the different schools, is there an analysis of what the costs are going to be to change Robert Smalls Middle and Buford Middle?
Well, the things that I've seen on Robert Smalls are minimal. I mean, they're literally going to close off a hallway, kind of thing. And the tentative,
there's going to be a different entrance.
But the entrance is already there. They don't have to create an entrance.
Okay.
And the tentative plans I've seen or heard about Buford Middle are the same. There's a wing that they can segregate the 5th graders into, that has office space for support staff and an administrator or a counselor or something, and a doorway at the end of that wing that can serve as an entrance into the wing. Kind of thing.
But minimum, what is minimum?
Oh, I think we're talking about cosmetic things, that are a couple $1,000. We're not talking about big facelifts like we did with so many of our schools.
Port Royal, 5th grade going to go to middle school the following year?
That was my understanding, that Port Royal was supposed to.
Port Royal will go to Buford Middle.
Which?
That would be.
The increase in busing costs, I would assume.
Pretty full.
Well, I mean, they go now, there's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders go there now.
2% with only 139 seats.
I will tell you some of the concerns I have about, or some of the concerns expressed about busing, I just really don't think are there. For 10 years, when Hilton Head High served as the high school for the whole south of the Broad and all the Bluffton kids, all the 6th and 7th, all the 6th through 12th graders rode the same bus. They came to one place, bus unloaded, the high school kids walked across the street to the high school, the middle school kids walked into the middle school, and and that was it. And let me tell you, the biggest problem was with the middle schoolers. It wasn't with the high school kids picking on the middle schoolers. The high school kids were like, leave us alone, go sit down kind of thing, just leave us alone. It was the middle schoolers. I can't ever really recall a high school kid trying to go into the middle school, but we were constantly dealing with middle schoolers who were coming into the high school, which is, it's just kids, it's a natural thing.
Does anybody else have any? Yes, Nancy.
First of all, Ms. Jones, thank you so much. It must have been a bit intimidating walking into this room with these chairs facing me, but I appreciate you coming.
You were never a high school principal, believe me, this is far from intimidating.
Well, this is true, but I was in high school. So my question really is, and maybe there's already an answer that I just am ignorant of, but throughout this whole process of Save Our Schools and so on, one of the things that I'm wondering is there currently a forum for this type of give and take with the school board members so that I felt like, we could show up at the board meetings, do our 3-minute worth, but there was never an opportunity to have the questions answered. And even looking at minutes, minutes haven't been updated since March. So I'm wondering, is there currently a forum?
School board minutes aren't out there?
No.
March 19th is the last one that's been updated
The only
online.
thing there is an
I don't understand that, because I haven't.
Do you? Well, there's
Yeah, I
nothing
mean,
on-
they're sent to me electronically. I would think that, well, the only thing that I would imagine would hold things up is minutes have to be approved by the board before they can be posted. But we've approved everything. I have no idea why they're not posted. I will certainly look into that, because that's a serious issue. Now, let me address the first part of your question, though. Last year, and I know Lisa was involved with this, and I don't know who else was in the room, with looking at how SICs and the district could work more closely with one another. And we had some meetings out at some private homes. There was a submission of a proposal. Some of it I thought was quite good. Some of it I had to have issue with, because there was one part that dealt with having a group of non-elected people basically evaluate the superintendent, which just can't happen under law. I mean, there's 2 people that the school board actually hires. I mean, people look and say, well, no, you hire all 2,800 people. Well, we do, but there's only really 2 people we hire, and that's our board secretary, Ms. Cushenberry, and the superintendent, Dr. Truesdale. Now, that's come up, that proposal with some changes has come before the board. We're going to discuss it. I know that both myself and Mrs. Bush have both asked for additions to that. I've asked for an addition of 2 meetings a year with the SICs and the board, either prior to a board meeting like we did back in January, we had a meeting like that, or to set up a specific day just to do that. And probably have one in council chambers and the other one maybe at Bluffton High School or something, so that people can get to them relatively easy. Mrs. Bush has, and I'm not letting out any news because it's going to be there, has requested that, I may have this wrong, I don't know whether it's twice a year or 4 times a year, she's asking that the principals in a cluster pull all their SICs together and have a cluster SIC meeting several times a year. Okay? I'm for both of those. Okay? I think they would both be positive. If you're going to talk about transparency, then you've got to be willing to sit down with people and discuss things with them. So that people understand, where you're coming from. I mean, I am sure that there are people who are concerned about my vote about Shell Point and closing the 2 early learning centers. Having gone through the budget and see us wipe out some programs that I thought were quite productive, it was my feeling that we had to come up with a way to do some permanent savings. Now, I'm not saying there's not other things. I'm saying that was one of the more obvious ones to me, that trying to do something about closing some buildings, partial closings of some buildings to reduce costs in our operating funds, that becomes permanent savings, okay, that we have going forward. And, you know, I often said while we were having this deliberation that my concern was, I understood, I went through this twice out in California when I was an administrator out there. I know how emotional it is. I think I understand it, okay? But my concern was that if we didn't do something like this, we were talking about an impact that would not only take place on the students at the schools that we were closing, but would take place on the other 19,000 students as we continued to cut the program. And that's what was really driving my decision. And my philosophy of what I said before, that good education takes place not inside a particular set of walls, but because of good teachers, good leaders, and supportive parents that get in and support their kids and support their schools. So I know that's not what everybody believes, but